Have you ever wondered why some men seem distant, even after spending so much time with you? Why he may enjoy your company, but never truly open his heart? The truth is, men don't get emotionally attached just because of attraction, chemistry, or even time spent together. Real emotional connection is triggered by something much deeper, and when it happens, everything about the way he treats you changes. In this talk, I'm going to reveal the 7 things that must happen for a man to become emotionally attached to you. If you've ever questioned why he's pulling away, or how to make love last instead of fade, this is for you. When it comes to men and emotional attachment, one of the most misunderstood truths is that attraction alone is not enough to make a man stay. A man can find you beautiful, he can laugh with you, he can even desire you deeply, but none of that guarantees that he will form a bond that lasts. What truly makes a man hold on, what makes him choose you, not just for the moment but for the long term, is the sense of emotional safety he feels when he is with you. Emotional safety doesn't mean perfection, and it doesn't mean never having disagreements. It means creating an environment where his guard can drop, where he feels accepted for who he is, and where he is not constantly bracing for judgment, criticism, or rejection. Many men grow up being told that emotions make them weak. They learn to bottle things up, to put on a mask of strength and confidence, to hide their fears and insecurities because showing them might seem like failure. When a man meets a woman who allows him to take off that mask without punishment, he experiences something rare. It is not the thrill of infatuation, but the comfort of knowing he can bring his whole self to the table and still be enough. That comfort builds trust, and trust is the foundation of emotional attachment. Without it, even the strongest chemistry burns out quickly. Emotional safety shows up in the little things. It is when he shares a dream and you don't laugh at it or diminish it, even if it sounds impossible. It is when he confesses a mistake, and instead of using it against him, you listen with curiosity. It is when he expresses frustration or sadness, and you don't call him weak, but you hold space for him to feel. These moments send a message that says, with me you don't have to perform, you don't have to impress, you don't have to hide. That message is intoxicating to a man because it is so rare in a world that constantly pressures him to be more, to do more, to show more strength than he sometimes feels inside. When a man feels emotionally safe, he doesn't just share the highlight reel of his life, he lets you into the messy parts, the failures, the doubts, the fears he has never spoken out loud. That vulnerability is the gateway to intimacy. It is also the litmus test. If he shows you his flaws and you still choose him, his heart begins to trust you in a way it never has before. This doesn't happen overnight. It happens gradually, in layers, as he learns through repeated experiences that you are someone who doesn't weaponize his openness. It is important to remember that emotional safety does not mean agreeing with everything he says or suppressing your own needs. It's about how you respond when differences arise, or if he feels like every disagreement will turn into an attack on his character, he will retreat. But if he feels that even in conflict, you see him as a good man who is trying, then he will stay engaged. Safety allows him to lean into challenges instead of pulling away. In the early stages of dating, many women focus on being attractive, witty, or impressive. While these things may capture attention, they are not what create attachment. What creates attachment is the moment he realizes that with you, he can breathe, that he doesn't have to live up to an impossible standard, that even when he is unguarded, even when he admits he is scared, you don't look at him as less of a man. Instead, you look at him as more of a human being. That is the moment a man begins to connect, not just with your body, not just with your smile, but with your soul. Would you like me to keep the same slow, cinematic rhythm for the other keynotes too, so each feels like part of a storytelling journey? Respect and admiration are the invisible forces that determine whether a man feels truly connected or quietly drifts away. While love often begins with chemistry, what sustains it is how valued he feels in your presence. Men, like women, crave to be seen, not just for what they provide or what they look like, but for who they are at their core. Respect is the lens through which a man interprets love, and admiration is the fuel that keeps him inspired to give more of himself. Without these two, even passion loses its fire, because attraction without respect feels hollow and admiration without sincerity feels like flattery. A man attaches emotionally when he senses that the person beside him genuinely respects his values, his effort, and his character. Respect is not about blind agreement or ignoring flaws. What is about recognizing his intentions, acknowledging his strengths, and speaking to the part of him that is trying, even when he falls short. Many men carry unspoken battles, constantly questioning if they are enough, if they measure up in their work, their relationships, their roles as providers or protectors. When the woman in his life affirms his worth, not by worshipping him but by noticing the effort he puts in, it creates a magnetic pull. He feels seen in a way the outside world rarely allows him to feel. Admiration goes hand in hand with respect, but it is more than acknowledgement. Admiration is when you reflect back to him the qualities that make him unique, the ones he may not even notice in himself. It is when you tell him you appreciate his consistency, or when you light up at the way he speaks passionately about his goals. Admiration is powerful because it makes him feel not just accepted, but celebrated. In a world where most men feel easily replaceable, admiration gives him the deep sense that he is irreplaceable in your eyes. This doesn't mean overlooking bad behavior or settling for less than you deserve. Respect and admiration are not about inflating his ego, but about connecting with his essence. If he is making an effort to grow, if he shows up with honesty, if he brings his best self to the relationship, reflecting that back to him strengthens the bond. Men often stay where they feel admired, but they withdraw where they feel diminished. Criticism that attacks his identity, sarcasm that cuts at his pride, or constant comparison to others can slowly erode his willingness to open up. Without respect, he may still desire you physically, but he won't invest emotionally. Think about the moments that make people feel connected, when someone says, "I'm proud of you," or "I love how you handled that situation," or even, "I see the way you care, and it inspires me." These are not just compliments, they are affirmations of value. They let him know that you notice who he is beneath the surface. When admiration comes from authenticity, it sparks something deeper than attraction. It makes him feel anchored to you, because your presence becomes the place where he is reminded of his worth. Respect also shows in how you speak to him during conflict. Disagreement is inevitable, but how you disagree shapes whether he feels closer or more distant. When you attack his choices with contempt or dismiss his feelings, he feels small and misunderstood. But when you communicate differences with empathy, while still holding your boundaries, he sees you as someone who can challenge him without tearing him down. That balance is magnetic to men, because it tells them they can be both strong and imperfect in your eyes. Every man secretly longs for a partner who believes in him, especially in moments when he struggles to believe in himself. Respect and admiration feed that longing. They don't come from grand gestures, but from small, consistent ways of seeing him clearly and reflecting back his best qualities. In the absence of these, attraction feels shallow. In the presence of these, attachment becomes inevitable, because he no longer sees you as just someone he likes. He sees you as the person who makes him feel most alive, most capable, and most himself. Do you want me to continue expanding Keynote No. 3 in the same emotionally cinematic style, or would you like me to make it slightly sharper and more practical, like step-by-step advice? Shared experiences are the glue that turns fleeting attraction into lasting connection. When two people create memories together, they are not just filling time, they are building a private world, a story that only belongs to them. For a man, emotional attachment deepens when he feels that the bond he shares with you is unique, when the moments you create together stand apart from the routine of everyday life. It is not about extravagant adventures or expensive trips, but about the intimacy of doing life together, side by side, in ways that leave imprints on his heart. Experiences have the power to shape how we feel about people, because they are tied to emotions. Think back to your own life. The moments that mean the most to you are not always the biggest events, but the small things you shared with someone you loved. For men, the same is true. It might be cooking dinner together and laughing when it all goes wrong, or taking a late-night walk and opening up about fears you never say out loud, or even facing challenges together, like helping each other through stressful days. These experiences build a sense of us, a partnership that grows stronger because you are living, not just existing in each other's company. The reason shared experiences matter so much is because they create anchors. A man remembers how he felt during those moments, and the emotions become tied to you. When he recalls the time you supported him through a difficult week, or the spontaneous road trip where you both got lost but laughed the whole way, he doesn't just remember the event, he remembers the feeling of being safe, understood, and happy with you. Over time, these anchors form a web of emotional connection that keeps him attached even when attraction ebbs and flows. Shared experiences also allow vulnerability to unfold naturally. A man may not always sit down and open his heart on command, but when you are doing something together, building, exploring, playing, it creates an atmosphere where walls come down without force. Talking while driving, joking while working on a project, or simply sitting together in silence watching a movie can lead to deeper layers of intimacy. The act of doing something together reduces pressure and allows connection to happen organically, without it needing to feel forced or heavy. It is important to note that shared experiences do not have to be dramatic or rare. Consistency is more powerful than occasional grand gestures. A weekly ritual, like making coffee together on Sunday mornings or walking through the same park after work, can carry more weight than a once-in-a-lifetime vacation. These routines become threads that weave a life together. They say, "This is ours, this belongs to us," and that sense of ownership over your shared life is what deepens his attachment. Men are also wired to bond through activity. While women may often connect more naturally through conversation, men frequently connect through doing. When you invite him into experiences where you can both participate, whether it's fitness, travel, hobbies, or even mundane tasks, you are speaking his natural language of bonding. It becomes less about what you are doing, and more about the fact that you are doing it together. Over time, these shared actions create a rhythm, and that rhythm builds a sense of belonging.
The beauty of shared experiences is that they grow richer with time.
The inside jokes, the photos, the remember when stories become a part of your shared narrative. That narrative is not just memory, it is identity. It tells him, we have history, we have moments that no one else can claim. For a man, realizing that his happiest or most meaningful moments are tied to you makes him invest more deeply, because losing you would mean losing part of himself, part of his story. Vulnerability is often misunderstood as weakness, but in reality, it is the strongest bridge to emotional connection. For men who are often conditioned to hide their insecurities, fears, and struggles, vulnerability can feel foreign and even dangerous. From a young age, many men are told to be tough, to avoid showing tears, to prove their worth by always being in control. This armor may protect them in the outside world, but it becomes a barrier to intimacy. Emotional attachment only happens when a man feels that he can take off that armor in your presence and still be loved for who he truly is, not just for the image he presents. When a man allows himself to be vulnerable with you, it means he trusts you with the parts of himself that he rarely shows anyone else. It might be sharing a story from his past that left scars, admitting that he feels insecure about his career, or simply telling you he is scared of failing. These moments are not easy for him, because they go against years of conditioning that taught him to measure his worth by strength and achievement. If his vulnerability is met with judgment, criticism, or dismissal, he will retreat and close off again. But if it is met with empathy, compassion, and acceptance, something profound happens. He begins to attach. Vulnerability is not just about words, it shows up in behaviors too. It can be in the way he leans on you during stressful times, the way he admits he doesn't have all the answers, or the way he shows his affection without trying to be cool or detached. Each time he takes the risk of showing his authentic self, he is testing whether it is safe to invest more of his heart. If those risks are rewarded with care and understanding, his attachment deepens because he learns that with you he does not need to hide. One of the most powerful ways to encourage vulnerability is by modeling it yourself. When you open up about your fears, your hopes, or even your imperfections, you create space for him to do the same. Vulnerability is contagious. It signals that this is a place where honesty is welcome, where there is no need to pretend. When he sees you being real, he feels less pressure to perform and more freedom to show up as he is. This exchange builds intimacy that goes beyond surface attraction and moves into something sacred, a connection rooted in truth. Vulnerability also brings depth to conflict. Every couple argues, but the difference between arguments that drive people apart and those that bring them closer lies in vulnerability. Instead of saying, "You never listen," vulnerability sounds like, "I feel invisible when I'm talking and you don't respond." Instead of shutting down or lashing out, vulnerability means revealing the hurt underneath the anger. When he sees that you can be vulnerable, even in moments of tension, it gives him permission to soften, to drop defensiveness, and to engage with his heart rather than just his ego. It is important to understand that vulnerability is not about oversharing or being dramatic. It is about authenticity. It is about letting the person you love see the real you, the strong parts and the fragile parts. For a man, being vulnerable with a partner often feels like stepping into uncharted territory, but once he experiences the relief of being accepted in that space, he no longer wants to go back to hiding. It becomes addictive in the best way. He begins to seek out your presence, not just because of attraction, but because with you he feels whole. This is why vulnerability is the heartbeat of attachment. A man may enjoy fun, passion, and companionship with many people, but he will only attach deeply to the person with whom he feels safe enough to be vulnerable. When that space is created and protected, it becomes the place where real love lives. Consistency and trust are the pillars upon which emotional attachment is built. A man may feel excitement, attraction, and even infatuation in the beginning, but without consistency, those feelings fade into uncertainty. Trust is not established in a single moment. It is built through a pattern of reliability, through actions that align with words, through steady behavior that shows you are who you say you are. For a man to attach deeply, he must feel that the ground beneath him is stable, that the connection is not something that will disappear when things get difficult. Consistency is what tells him that your affection is not just situational, not dependent on mood, and not something that shifts with every disagreement. It shows him that he can rely on you emotionally, that you are present not only when it's easy, but also when it's inconvenient. When he sees that your kindness, your respect, and your interest remain steady over time, it builds a sense of security. Security is the soil in which attachment grows, because without it, a man remains guarded. If he feels like your attention is unpredictable, or your feelings are conditional, he may enjoy the relationship, but he will hesitate to surrender his heart fully. Trust, in many ways, is the outcome of consistency. Each time you follow through on what you say, each time you show up when you said you would, each time you keep his confidence and protect his vulnerabilities, trust expands. Men may not always verbalize it, but trust is central to their emotional world. A man who cannot trust will never attach, no matter how much he desires you. Trust allows him to risk giving more of himself, because he believes that his effort won't be wasted, that his openness won't be betrayed. Consistency and trust also apply to the way conflicts are handled. If every disagreement turns into a threat of leaving, or if boundaries are set one day and broken the next, the inconsistency creates instability. He begins to wonder if the relationship is safe to invest in, but when he sees that conflicts are faced with honesty and respect, that boundaries are honored, and that problems are resolved rather than avoided, he starts to relax into the relationship. That relaxation is what allows deeper love to form, because he no longer feels the need to guard himself against sudden shifts. It is important to understand that consistency does not mean perfection. No one can be flawless all the time, and attachment does not require that. What matters is the overall pattern, the sense that your behavior matches your words more often than not, that your care is not just temporary but enduring. Consistency builds a rhythm in the relationship, a rhythm that feels safe, predictable in the best sense. When he knows what to expect from you, he can invest with confidence rather than fear. Trust is also tested in small, everyday choices. It is in the way you handle his secrets, in whether you respect his boundaries, in whether you stand by your promises. These small tests accumulate over time, and each one contributes to his decision about how much of his heart he is willing to give. When he experiences reliability repeatedly, he begins to associate you with safety. That safety makes him not just want you in his life but need you in his life, because with you he can rest from the chaos of the world. When consistency and trust are present, attraction transforms into attachment. A man realizes that what he has is not fleeting, not fragile, not dependent on circumstances. It is steady, it is reliable, it is something he can count on. That realization is what makes him commit emotionally, because the human heart attaches where it feels secure, and for a man, security is born from the alignment of words, actions, and unwavering presence. He attaches when he feels chosen, not compared. A man can sense when he is simply an option on your list versus when he is the person you truly value. Emotional attachment is not about proving himself against an invisible competition, it is about knowing that in your eyes he is enough. In a world where everyone is constantly measured, compared and stacked up against others, the feeling of being chosen is rare. It is one of the most powerful forces in relationships because it touches a man's deepest need to be significant, to matter, to hold a place no one else can replace. When a man feels compared, whether it is to your ex, to a friend's partner, or even to an idealized version of someone in your imagination, he begins to shut down. Comparison makes him feel like no matter what he does, it will never be sufficient, because he is not being valued for who he is, but measured against who he is not. Over time, this erodes connection and creates insecurity. He may try harder for a while, but eventually he withdraws because no amount of effort can fill the void of not being accepted as himself. Being chosen, on the other hand, awakens something in him. It is not about flattery or feeding his ego. It is about the quiet but unmistakable signal that says, out of all the people I could be with, I want you. That signal tells him that your love is intentional, not circumstantial. It reassures him that your commitment is not conditional upon him constantly outperforming others, but grounded in the unique value he brings into your life. That reassurance allows him to invest with confidence because he no longer feels like he is competing for his place. Men are often drawn to achievement because it is how they measure their worth. But when he realizes that he does not have to win your heart through endless proving, that he already has it because of who he is, he relaxes into the relationship. That relaxation is what allows attachment to grow because he can show up authentically rather than performing. The man who feels chosen begins to reveal more of himself, his quirks, his passions, his vulnerabilities, because he knows he is not in danger of being replaced the moment he falters. The feeling of being chosen also deepens when you celebrate what makes him unique. Every man has qualities that set him apart, and when you highlight those qualities, you are telling him that you see him clearly and value him specifically. Whether it is his sense of humor, his drive, his kindness, or the way he makes you feel safe, pointing out what you love about him reinforces that he is not interchangeable. He becomes the person you want, not just a role you are trying to fill. That recognition is what bonds him to you, because it tells him that your connection is not generic but deeply personal. Being chosen also means being prioritized. A man notices when you make space for him, when you choose to invest in him even when life is busy, when you stand by him in front of others. These actions are more powerful than words because they demonstrate loyalty. Loyalty is proof of choice. When he feels that you are consistently choosing him, not just in private moments but in public ones, not just in easy times but in hard ones, he begins to attach at a level that goes beyond desire. It becomes devotion. The danger of comparison cannot be underestimated. Even subtle remarks about what another man does better, or hints that he should live up to someone else's example, plant seeds of insecurity. Instead of motivating him, they make him feel like he is never truly enough. But the moment he feels that he is chosen fully, wholeheartedly, without competition, his heart begins to settle. He no longer wonders if you are looking over his shoulder for someone better.
He knows that with you he has already won, not because he is perfect, but because he is yours. Attraction may spark the beginning of a relationship, but it is never what makes it last. What makes a man truly attach is something deeper, something quieter, something more powerful than physical desire. It's the way he feels safe enough to drop his guard, the way your respect and admiration lift him higher, the way shared experiences weave his life with yours, the way vulnerability feels less like a risk and more like a relief, the way your consistency and trust give him stability in a world of uncertainty, and the way he knows, without doubt, that he has been chosen, not compared, not tested, but chosen. When these things come together, a man doesn't just stay, he invests. He doesn't just desire you, he commits, and he doesn't just love you, he builds a life with you, because in his heart, he knows he has found something he cannot replace,